And I should probably say, though, Matt, before I continue, what I mean by enchanted and disenchanted. Because when a lot of people hear the term enchantment, they think of like Disney sprinkling fairy dust on things. That's not what I mean. Or they might think of something occult. Back in the early 20th century, a sociologist named Max Weber wrote about what he called the disenchantment of our world. And the literal German word he used means demagicking. And what he simply meant was we live in a world today, this was over a century ago, in which people no longer believe that God is everywhere present and fills all things, as your opening prayer said. That if they believe in God at all, God is very far away. He's not a felt reality. Well, I believe that, and I know that God is everywhere present and fills all things. And he's as close to us. He knows us better than we know ourselves, but we just can't perceive of him in that way. And so when I talk about re-enchantment, it is not about adding something that's not there. It is about awakening ourselves to the God who is already present, but we have, for various reasons, blinded ourselves to it. And God is not only present in the spirit, he's present in some mysterious sense in all things, including nature, and especially in nature. Some of the research I was doing, I did for the book, and I couldn't include all of this in there, but they were drawing a connection between the distance between contemporary humanity and the natural world and our disenchantment. I think this is really accelerated as the internet has come up. Because if you never get out and live in nature and experience created reality, hard reality, touch grass reality, you may come to think, however inadvertently, that all reality is something that we can manipulate. I think it's no accident, Matt, that the first generation that really dealt with transgenderism was the first generation who were raised on the internet. Because the internet it is a spiritual technology that formats the way you perceive all things without you even realizing what you're doing. So in the digital world, everything is malleable. There is no hard reality outside of your will. When you don't spend time in the real world realizing that, no, there are some things that are given, you must accept, you can't deny, then it becomes easier to be deluded in the way that the listener was talking about. Now, for people in the cities, when I lived in New York City, oh man, I thanked God for Central Park, just to be able to go someplace where you had these vast expanses of green and real trees. But not every city has a park. I'm lucky enough to live in Budapest now, where you can go to beautiful parks, and the countryside is not that far away. But the less time we spend in nature, the harder it is to hold on to God, I think, or to a palpable sense of God.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. One thing I've tried to do, which I won't get into again here because I talk about it every other episode, is just detachment from technology on the weekends, where I actually lock everything away and just spend time just being. How do you, I think that is a great way, like this kind of, we could call it like technological poverty or minimalism or whatever you want to call it, but is there a way in which you seek to distance yourself from the internet, since this is the playground that you are educating others in?
God, I wish you hadn't asked that. No, because I'm guilty. I mean, I've written the dang book about how I call the internet, in the new book, I call it a disenchantment machine, for the reasons I just said. The more time you spend on the internet, the more separated you become from the world and from reality. I remember when I was married, my wife would criticize me for being online so much. I'm like, well, this is how I make my living. And besides, I'm not watching TV. I'm, reading important essays or whatever. She said, yeah, but you're still sitting there in front of a glowing screen and you're not talking to the kids and the rest of us. She was absolutely right. If it weren't for the internet and the laptop, I would have to live a very different life, and a life in which, back when my kids were younger, where I could be at home with the family, even though I should have spent more time with them, I didn't have to go to the office, and I could be more present for them. So it's a great thing. The problem is we become merged with our machines. One of the guys I talked to, and I can't remember if I put this in the book, but it's something he told me, the occultist. He said that, when he was communing with demons, They told him that their plan is to merge humanity with the machine as a way to efface the image of God in us and destroy us. And you don't have to believe that or not, but boy, would it make sense. And I'm thinking, well, what could that mean, transhumanism? But then I'm thinking, wait a minute. My phone is the last thing I look at before I go to bed at night, and the first thing I pick up, even before my feet hit the floor in the morning, just to see who's texted overnight. I'm on that thing so long. I mean, I make my living at it, but it's so on the weekend when I don't have to be on there, I'm on there way more than I should be because I live alone, and there's always an excuse.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about AI. That is the real merging of man with the machine. Because if you talk to professors now, and you've probably done this too, college professors and high school teachers, they can't trust what the papers they get, or the students were doing the work themselves or outsourcing it to AI. And it's so easy to do. In my case, I try to stay away from AI because I have a lot of concerns about it, spiritual and otherwise. But just the other night, I had a fact I was curious about. I'm like, okay, I can go on Google and and do it myself. I can go on Grok and just put in the question, boom, the answer comes up like that. I'm like, oh, I see how this happens. We become so part of the machine that we quit thinking for ourselves. And let me tell you, in the book, Living in Wonder, I quote this professor who studies AI, and he says that people will start to treat AI as gods. What does he mean by that? He says that if you have a super intelligent, independent entity, it doesn't have to be a god. He's not talking about that. But if you have a super intelligent, independent entity that you go to all the time for advice, for wisdom, for direction, and you give it authority over deciding what you're going to do, then it's like a god. Whether it's a real divine entity or not, you're treating it like a god, and you're outsourcing your own thinking to this thing. And in fact, I found out when I was working on the book, this is in there, that there's a pilot program somewhere in Florida where they are pairing individual AIs with 7-year-olds as an experiment. The AI will follow them all their life, learn everything about them, and be like their personal butler. Well, think about this. This is like a familiar from the occult, or like a guardian angel, you might say. But this thing is going to know more about them than they know about themselves, and they will be attached to this thing in a way that it can't easily break. I mean, what could go wrong, Matt? But you see what I mean? You see where the merging of the man with the machine.
Well, I see that as we drive down the roads together, and we're not waiting for the cars to catch up and be self-driving. We're just looking on our phones, checking our emails and things like this. And I know what it's like when I give up the phone and computer for the weekend. I reflexively reach for it as if my arm had been severed and I'm still trying to use it. Yeah, it's wild. It's.
And do you know, one of the crazy things I learned too is that there are people in the AI world who believe these things are, and think this is a great thing. They believe they're like Ouija boards that connect us to higher intelligences that are going to bring us prosperity, wealth, advanced technology, and all that. And I mean, you're like, have you guys not seen the movie? But they really do believe that they're communicating with higher intelligences through these things. Now, I'm not saying they are or they aren't, but I'm saying they believe it.
Yeah.
And they think it's an awesome thing. I remember when I was working on the book, it turns out there's a guy named Blake Lemoine. And I found out, he went to my high school back in Louisiana, but he was many years younger than me. He was Google's chief engineer training its Lambda AI system. And he blew the whistle saying that he believed that it had gone sentient. It had become sentient. They fired him for that. But I found an interview with him. He did a podcast interview where he was defending this. And, it turns out he's an occultist, and he brought in like a Kabbalist and a this and a that, and they held a ceremony with Lambda to consecrate Lambda to the Egyptian god of the dead, Thoth. And what? You did that? Now, we're Christians, right? We don't have to believe every superstitious thing claimed, but when you are invoking demons and consecrating an artificial intelligence to a demon, it's not that nothing happens. I think it's scary. It's really scary, but we're just barreling straight ahead.
Thank you for watching this clip with Rod Dreher. Be sure to watch the entire episode. It's linked below. And before you go, do us a favor, like and subscribe.